Kia ora, welcome to Light Lunch. I'm Sophie Prebble. I'm the Marketing and Comms Lead for the Building Institute Aotearoa. I'm joined today by Nick Gifford and Paul Stiles, and I'll hand over to you both to introduce yourself really quickly. Nick, starting with you.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. Look, as Sophie said, my name's Nick Gifford. I'm the National Strategic Sales Manager for Allied Concrete. Been with Allied for approximately 15 years.
And Paul.
Paul Stiles Project Management. It's just coming up to 30 years. It's an unbelievable achievement when you go out by yourself, and people said you should have done it years ago. But no, I had the fantastic opportunities of 14 years with central government, works in development, civil engineering, man management, etc. And then working in Southeast Asia and 5 years with Promenco and the inveterate Herb Farrant, who was one of the founders in these early days of the Institute.
He was. So we'll jump straight into the questions. I'll start with you, Nick. What are you currently excited about in your work? Is there a project or something that you're working on that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, look, there's quite a few things sort of going on in our space at the moment around a whole bunch of different sort of avenues, but there's one in particular without sort of going into too much detail about it yet, because we're still a couple of weeks away from launch, but we are working on I guess some added value or service provider sort of system, which hopefully, we can certainly see will provide additional support to architects and designers and potentially engineers as well. So we're going to use that as a way of helping them sort of come up with more buildable solutions that obviously incorporate concrete. But we're pretty close to actually putting that into the market. We're really excited about it. The early stages, the early indicators are for areas of the market that we've tested it on is, look, everyone's pretty excited about it. And look, I just think it's a good way for us to be able to sort of provide sort of all-in-one solutions for our customers, trying to provide more value rather than just providing a product like concrete.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing what this mystery is. How about you, Paul? What's exciting you at the moment about your work?
Well, actually, I was very taken by what Nick was saying there, that I was involved with one of the earliest tests of low slump non-vibrated concrete on a rural project 25 years ago, and hugely successful, but such memories. Probably my highlight at the moment would be building a beautiful new residence, as we call them, not houses, for Israel Adesanya. And he's had a stellar career in the cage in UFC, and I was sort of just drawn in through contacts with the architect, who in turn had been actually sourced from the internet by Israel's dad. It's funny how things go around. I always sort of believe these things are meant to be. But the house is in the country out of Dorotea, and I think Lindsay constructed them myself about 2 years into the build, and I wouldn't mind betting another couple of years to go yet. We've got to up our game to ensure that this beautiful home that's sort of you can just imagine how big, because we've got a movie theatre and a grappling mat area and a gym and family room, aquarium in the back of the house, and a whole wing for the master bedroom. But we've got this most beautiful panel lab, composite cladding on part of the expression on the fascia and the standouts on the walls. And we've got 40 mils thick limestone, which arrived in about 4,000 crates from Italy. And we're just quietly working our way through there. And the windows are going in, so closed by Christmas. So that's my major objective for this present year.
Right. Well, the
great.
grappling room sounds interesting.
It does.
There's a stripper pole too.
Oh gosh, does he want you to share that? I don't know. Maybe he's got a new career coming up. So we'll move on to the next one. What's a lesson that you've learned? I'm sure you've both learned lots of important lessons over your careers that you'd like to pass on to others. Nick, I'll go back to you.
Okay. Look, I think there are lots actually, and look, that I guess I'd say I personally learned, but also, every day we're learning something different. There's no doubt about that. But one that I sort of try and keep reasonably close in what I do sort of every day, and it's reasonably simple, is I just like to under promise and over deliver. And I guess what I mean by that is I see certainly in sales, we see a lot of people saying things, they get excited about the opportunity, the thrill of the chase, so to speak, and effectively over promise and under deliver. Mainly just to try and secure a sale or try and benefit from a relationship. I guess at the end of the day, my sort of theory is that, as I said, under promise, but in other words, just be realistic. Try and meet the client's expectations. Sometimes those expectations may not actually be possible, and it's important from my perspective to be honest and upfront with them and say, look, we absolutely understand your vision, but actually what we think is the outcome is more likely going to be this based on what we've sort of discussed, or along that sort of line anyway. So look, for me, it's important to be upfront and just have really clear expectations about what's possible. Yeah,
absolutely. And Paul?
I'm actually thinking about conduct, actually, and I've got a brief anecdote that at the age of 19, got a holiday job with Works and Development while I was doing a civil engineering degree. I was thrown an A55 ute and told to go down the end of the motorway to Slippery Creek, where I'd find pitch mix for actually widening the motorway. That was my induction. And so wandered backwards and forwards across the motorway. You can imagine it today. And Marina was the old galley in charge, and Lean was his compatriot, and the language was shocking. And I learned so much. But then I arrived one day, I'm a little A55, and I said, what are you guys up to here? And they said, we're just about to start laying the pavement. I said, no, you're forgetting the thin surfacing mix, which was a whole new concept. Basically, level out the ups and downs before you lay the thick structural pavement. But in my passing that knowledge on to them, I used rather bad language, just inadvertently, because it was the norm. I got absolutely dumped on. And the next second, I had this group of husky bitumen guys saying, hang on, what's going on here? And I said, it's in the specification. Where's the specification? I didn't have it. Boy, that was a lesson I learned. So I rushed back, fighting back the tears at the age of 19. I got the specification. Thank God I was actually quite an inch and a half, it was. And the district commissioner got on a personal apology that night from the head of Bitumix. But I go through life year upon year, and I just reflect that it's what we do when we stand there with colleagues, with clients, with the public, and we have to think about what we say. It's important to speak slowly, to enunciate, to use words which people will understand, even though grammar is one of my great joys in life. But it certainly has turned me well. But I look back with so many incidents which have occurred, and they are fresh in my mind, and I couldn't actually ever forget those lessons.
It's definitely an important one, and one you learned early.
Right.
We'll move on now to how about someone who has been influential in your life and your career? Maybe name them, and then what is it about them that's been so influential? Nick?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to name this person because you just never know who's listening, I guess. But look, this is going a long way back to my very first role in a sales role, actually. So I won't say how far back either, because that'd be potentially embarrassing. But look, this person was really influential in I guess, how I conducted myself, my future behaviours, and really, I guess, helped me understand the importance of relationships. And sort of touching on what Paul said, it's sort of the conduct between customer and supplier, or customer and salesperson, really helped me understand the importance of that. I guess, being honest and fair, is probably another sort of trait that this person really gave me. Also, just the ability to make mistakes, and I think that's really important. And we sort of see even in our industry now, it's giving our staff the freedom to make decisions, within boundaries, obviously, but the freedom to make decisions without feeling there's going to be repercussions. Because at the end of the day, we want people to be as sort of free thinking as possible, right? Without any sort of too many issues. But yeah, this person really helped with that, and I think that's something that I've always sort of kept close. And I'll say it was very much right back at the beginning of it was probably one of my very first sales jobs. So yeah, always think about this particular person from time to time, wondering what they're doing. And so no, I really appreciated that person for sure.
Well, I
How about
thought,
you,
Sophie,
Paul?
the question was a little unfair, person, because
yeah, I did struggle with that myself, Paul.
55-year career, you've under a lot of people. But I immediately thought of Andy Daly, who was the district highway engineer, and taught me about what shape correction means, and that if the contractor can't actually get the road square, well, then go back to them and actually say, we've got standards to maintain here. And I drove down the motorway the whole time, and I think, but this is just not up to scratch. And then I think about Bryce and Hosey, and we worked together in the British Design Office. I was a young pup, and a couple of teeth on British Design, and then we were working on the deck for the Great North Road overpass, and came up with a very innovative way of actually working the thickness of the deck out, so things would be square by the time the weight was actually bearing back down onto the precast beams. And then, bugger me, a year later, I was actually building that very same bridge. And so he was very, very influential, very calm, and very, very keen to pass the knowledge on. And I've never shirked in my own personal life from doing the same. And then there was Ian McGowan, who my boss out on the bridging work, and then 8 years later he taps me on the shoulder and says, come and be the construction engineer for the Whanganui area. So you can't say no to something like that. And Ian was just he just was an inspirational leader, and we had 150 staff, and we were all set to 1987, and we're on the road, and I'd still be probably doing a job like that. But life goes on.
Can I just say, Sophie, I reckon like everybody's listening can probably, and so I sort of struggled with this question initially, was trying to narrow it down to one person. And I think everybody listening can probably think of all the managers that they've had over their careers and go, actually, there's some amazing things about these people and maybe some not so amazing things about those same managers. And I've certainly, from my perspective, like, there's just bits and pieces I've picked from each of them. I'm going, you really like that, or that's a really good quality. And like, just as there's some negatives as well. But yeah, look, I think it's, as I said right at the beginning, as we go through our careers, there's lots of little lessons and learnings we can pick up from different people for sure.
Absolutely. And sometimes you learn a lot about what you want to do from maybe a manager who's doing something in the way that you wouldn't do.
Yes,
so
that's
it can,
right.
it can all lead to good things in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a last question. It's sort of become even more important in the discussion at the moment about keeping the balance between work and your own well-being, your mental health, your physical health. How do you both do that in your own life? Maybe you don't very well, I don't know. But Nick, how about you? What do you do to maintain that balance?
Yeah, look, I think it's, as I've got older, if I'm being honest, I've sort of come to realise that it's vitally important to have a balance between work and sort of out of work life. I'd be the first one to admit that for a large part of my career, my work was my life, and actually it got very clouded between what was life and what was work for a lot of the time. And there was a lot of time, especially as my children were younger, where I missed certain events and things because I was so busy working and I was at work related events. So as I've got older, I've suddenly realised that actually there is more important things than just work. And so I had a recent milestone birthday and was trying to work out what should I do with myself. And so I took golf up again, actually, which I think everyone in New Zealand's taken up golf again because it's almost impossible to get on a golf course these days. But I'm really enjoying it. And actually what I've found, even though it was primarily for myself to get a little bit more outside and exercise and just a bit of a mental breakdown, a lot of my a lot of my customers, clients have also taken up golf. So actually, it's sort of become a different way to network across the industry as well. So sort of going back from the old days where you might have done it over a beer in a pub, now you do it smacking the heck out of a golf ball. And so it's a lot more enjoyable. It's better for your health most of the time, depending on how well you're playing. And I just really enjoy it. Just can't get enough, really, to be honest. And I think it's a good thing.
Well, you'll be a taker for our golf days that we hold in the main
very
centres.
much. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
How about you, Paul? What do you do to maintain a bit of balance?
Well, I'm very jealous of Nick, actually, because the years go by and you always say you're going to take golf up because it's you're playing yourself, you're playing the course, you're playing the idiots that are going around with you. But no, 2 years ago I snapped my Achilles, and just recently I had a new knee, so maybe I'll be able to sort of get back to tramping again, which was really a huge passion. But I don't take this lightly, but I'm probably the most food person in the history of New Zealand, because over the last 25 years, there's been a persistent round of presentations of claim and such like, and it ended up being sort of pretty much losing everything. And it just doesn't ever give away. It's still there in the background. Now, if I didn't have the fortitude to stay on top of that, I wouldn't be talking to this this afternoon. But at the same time, it's the strength of the collegiate groups such as the Institute and Engineering New Zealand, and especially the Society of Construction Law, where I sort of tune in to the team when we go, and it just feels like part of the family. So, and of course, I've got the kids growing up, and that's a great blessing. And most unexpected, I was never going to get married or have kids, but the way things go. So I'm very grateful for all those that have supported me, and nobody's ever told me I've done anything wrong. But we do have a wretched civil structure of in the so-called justice system that everybody gets sued, and you have to actually prove that you are innocent rather than somebody proving that you're guilty. And that just absolutely struck me as being so unfair. But I'm not complaining. I'm just going to keep on trucking on. It's probably a reflection actually on the great range of jobs I've done that I've been through so many times. So, be grateful for small mercies, I suppose.
Well, I'm glad that the Institute and other organisations are helping with your mental health, Paul. That's excellent to hear.
Well, you know that you're my favourites.
Oh, thank you. We won't tell the others. We'll wrap up here. Thank you both very much for taking part in this, and I'll leave you to the rest of your day.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Sophie.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Great to
Cheers.
hear your insights there, Nick.
Thank you. Cheers.